Hello everyone, this is Mohammed. I'm back with the continuation of the tutorial of the Employee Vaccination Management System. Today we're going to add a login page, basically add security in front of this and add a couple of user types, user and admin. So let's get to it. This is how it should look like by now if you have been following the tutorial. So if you go back to your Eclipse, and if you open the POM XML, which is basically the configuration file for Maven, we're going to first of all add the security libraries. So the first one is going to be the Spring Security, which is obvious. We're going to use Spring for the security, so let's just add it right there. And the second one is, of course, we're also going to use the Pages Security with the Thymeleaf. So we're going to add the Thymeleaf Security as well, version 5. So that's the latest one, so let's add it right in the Thymeleaf section. Alright, so as soon as you add it, one thing that you'll notice, let's try to refresh this page. So right now it's going to work fine, but what's going to happen is we added the security as soon as I stop the server, and I'm going to go ahead and restart it back. Let it come up. So it's up. And now if I try to go into that same page, bam, I get a login page. So this is the built-in Spring Security, is the starter thing. So as soon as I started the security libraries or added them, Spring automatically gives this piece saying, okay, well, it's secured now, you can't log in, or you can't really get into that area, everything is secure. So then you have to implement it. But this is coming from Spring. This is not something, we haven't done anything. This is all built-in, Spring's built-in starter page. Okay, so let's look at that a little bit. Okay, there is several ways to implement Spring Security. We're going to use Spring's basic authentication system, and it will be database-centric. So it will be fairly simple. We're not going to do anything fancy, but of course it can be extended to be really fancy if you really want it. Alright, so the very first thing we're going to do, if you remember, probably in the middle of the series, like maybe in part 5, we added the database, put the vaccination type in the database. So in order to do that, we installed some software. One of them was MySQL Workbench. So let's bring that up. And we also saved our SQLs in the SQL directory. So we're going to try to load that up because we're going to have to add some tables, or only one table actually. So let's go ahead, open the SQL script. It was in this directory there. In your EVMS project, in the SQL, there will be a file called EVMS SQL. Go ahead, open that up. Alright, so you basically have the simple stuff of dropping in, creating database, and the dropping and creating the vaccine type table and inserting the data. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add another table, and the table would be called users, and it will basically have the user ID, username, password, role, enabled, create date, and created by. So for lack of the time, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste, but it will be there on the GitHub, so will be able to have access to it. So what I just added, so this was already there, this was already there, I added this. So basically I'm saying that go ahead, drop if this users table exists. If it doesn't exist, go ahead, create the users table, and with user ID, that would just be a primary key, and then username, this will be a username, and this will be the password. But the password, as you can see, is pretty 64-bit. What's going to happen, we're not going to store the actual password. We'll follow the standard where you're going to hash the password, so no one can really see it. And then we need to have a role. We need to say what type of user this is. Is it a user, and is it something else, or admin? Here we're only going to deal with two types of user, like user type, normal user, and the admin. And the difference would be the user would be able to see all data, and admin will be able to see and change the data. And of course, this is to say that whether it's enabled or not enabled or disabled. and of course the standard created date when it was created, who created it, and last time it was updated and who updated it. And of course these are the two users that I just mentioned. The first user is with user ID user, and the second user is with the user ID admin. The password, I already hashed it. The password will be same as the user, so this will be user user, this will be admin admin. Now you don't have to use the same password. If you really interested in creating another password, when you insert the record, of course right here you need to hash the password and insert it. And one quick way to hash it that I actually like to do is you could just go type BC crypt generator. So just choose that and pick the first one, and there you could just kind of say, okay, let's say the password you wanted to say is test, and just click on hash, and this is the hash, and you can just copy it and put that in there, so it will always work for the BC crypt that we're going to use. Okay, anyway, coming back, so now that we have the script, I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Select this whole thing and just click on this thing right here, and it ran it and everything is there. If I go ahead and click refresh, there's my user table. Just to make sure that it's there, and there it is. All the rows are there. Alright, now the little weird thing about Spring Security is when you use the basic authentication, and it's got to have a role, and the role always has to start with the role underscore. When we check the role, we'll only check, like, we have a role of user or has a role of admin, but when you put that in the database, you got to put the role underscore in there. So that's why it's there. Okay. So coming back here now the next thing we're going to do is come back here and add a new Java class. And the Java class is basically to say that, hey, we're going to have Spring Security. So let's go ahead and create a new one, class, and I like to call it, first of all, I like to have it in the package config. It's the configuration thing, and let's call this EVMS Web Security Config. Alright, so now this class, we're going to extend it from Web Security Configure Adapter, and this is a built-in class from Spring. We're just going to import that, and then we're also going to use a couple of annotation, basically say, hey, this is a configuration, and we're just going to say enable web security. So import that, and then import this one as well. Alright, our next thing is going to be that we're going to use a database, so we're going to use the JDBC based authentication. So in order to use the database, of course, we're going to have a data source. So we're just going to say auto-wired private data source, and just have that. Let's import these two. The SQL one, and then we're going to override a couple of methods. So we can right click here and go to source and say override implement methods, and the couple of methods we're going to override is this one, configure authentication manager builder, and configure HTTP security, and let's say okay. Alright, so the first one is authentication builder. Let's get to it. We're just going to delete all this stuff that they added, and then we're going to use this reference AUTH and say dot, and it will give you a JDBC authentication, so that's what that is. And then we're going to say, hey, we're going to use a password encoder, that would be this, and the encoder is going to be new CRYPT password encoder. So that's built in there as well. So let's see if you can find it. There you go. And then stream of methods, and we're going to say we're going to use the data source, which is that data source we just added right there. Then let's go to the next line so that it kind of becomes a little bit clearer. Dot, and then we're going to say that, hey, we're going to use the query instead of just going through a whole bunch of database hooplas. So you're going to say users by username query right there. Okay, and the query is going to be very simple. We already have the table, so you're just going to say select username, password, enabled from users where username equals, we're going to pass that. Okay, and then we're also going to add one more thing to check the authority. So let's go to the next line so it becomes a little cleaner. Then we're going to check authorities by username query so that you can also check that too. And that would be another query, which is like select username role from users. You can kind of copy this whole thing. Alright, that should be it. And then just semicolon. So basically, you just kind of call a stream of method, database authentication, then the user password encoder, and then this is how you kind of get your username password if it's enabled or not, and this is how you get the type of role that you have for that specific user. So that's it. Nothing else there. And then let's try to configure this guy right here. And here, all we're going to say is, hey, well, we're going to say that, hey, this HTTP, copy that, dot, and we're going to say authorize all requests. And then we're going to say what to authorize. So we're going to have a dot, and it gives us a nice options called ant matcher. So basically it's going to match exactly what we tell it to do. So we're saying that authorize every request that you see that goes to vaccine type. So we know that we have a URL vaccine type that takes you to the list of vaccine types. So we're basically saying that that thing and anything after that, that slash star, that is your wildcard, that makes sure that dot has, you can either say any role or you can say has authenticator, either works, but anyway we're going to say has any role, and we're just going to specifically say, hey, you got to have an admin or you're going to have an user. If you're not any of these two, you should not be able to access. So like that. And then we're going to add some more. That basically says dot any request, like any request for this has to be authenticated. So that's what we're basically saying, that hey, the HTTP authorize every request, but for this type of URL, make sure that whoever is logging in, they have at least admin and user role, and any request they make out of this URL, make sure it's authenticated. So that's what that basically means. And then we're going to add an end, like we also wanted to do something else, and then we're going to say, hey, we have a form login. So here we are specifying that we get a form login, and make sure that the login form permit everyone, of course, because everyone can try to log in, whether they can or not, whether they have the right user ID or not. And then we're also going to add another and basically say we'll also have the standard logout that Spring Boot provides, and say permit all, logout permit all, and login permit all. That's pretty much it. Now let's see how it works. So go ahead, save that, and I'm going to let it restart. And I'm going to actually go ahead and stop the server and let it restart so that it picks up everything. So I'm going to stop it and let it go ahead and start that back up again. There you go. So while it's coming up, so all we did is nothing but added a configuration for SpringBoot Security and basically said, hey, configure my authentication system, which is you use it from the database, and you use the passcode encoder to hash it. That's the encoder that you should use. And then you use this data source connection that is actually going to come from the application properties. We already defined all the MySQL database, if you remember. This was back in part 5. So it's going to come from there, and then we said that how it's going to secure all of our URLs inside. Alright, so it looks like it's up. Let's go back and let's see what's going on there. So again, if I just go to the first page, it gives me the login. Now let's see if I log in, what happens. So our one user ID password is admin and sign in. Looks like it's working because it logged me in, but then it doesn't know what page to go. So by default it actually looks for index.html. So right now if I just type vaccine type right here, it should come. What that tells me is, yeah, it is logged in. Okay, the first thing we're going to try to do is we're going to try to add the home page. So let's go ahead and add a page right, not in this directory, it's going to be right on the template. Probably the best way to do it, let's start from here because it's going to be called index. So I'm going to go to file, save as, and save it in template right here. And of course we're not going to need all of these stuff. The reason I did a save as because I want to keep all of this because it's going to be part of our layout, which we did last time. And we're pretty much going to delete everything inside here and just come up with some new tags. Actually, let's delete this, keep all that. Don't need the table, I need the script. Okay, let's put something in there. Just say some welcome message. So let's put some H3 header and let's put some nice box. So we'll have an alert box and let's just say alert primary. It'll be like a light blue box. And let's put some message right there and let's add that message right here. Okay, let's call it welcome. And we're going to learn a little bit on how we're going to parameterize this, which we kind of did last time, but we have never done it using Thymeleaf. So we're going to say welcome, blah, 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 whatever the user is. So let's see how we're going to do that. So let's go back, and here, first of all, we're going to go ahead and say that we need to do some Thymeleaf here. And there will be a thing that comes from the message properties, welcome. And the way you pass parameters in using Thymeleaf, you kind of create like as if it's a method. So our first parameter is basically we're just going to say something like, hey, the name of the username. So the username actually we can get it from the HTTP request directly. So the way you do it, you can kind of set the $, and it's kind of like it's a variable inside, and the variable is nothing but HTTP. Oh, come on, HTTP servlet request. That's kind of like the request object that you have access to directly in Thymeleaf using this. And it's just basically we're calling the method get remote user, and you could just say remote user, and that's about it. And just to be a little bit more savvy, we're going to use some Spring Security tag. So in order to use Spring Security tag, you need to add that namespace to this. And then it will be nice to show, you know, what type of access this user has. So we're going to have another span tag. And inside span, we're going to use this tag which is the SEC, SEC, and authentication is how you kind of get different things in here. And you could just say something like principal dot authorities, like this. So principal dot authorities. Okay, so that basically just show that what type of user you are. Alright, let's go back and quickly try to make sure that it's at least showing the home page. We may have to log back in or restart the server. Let's just see. There you go. It shows welcome admin, role admin. So that's exactly what we wanted to say. Now let's try add a logout here so that we can log out and log back in again, because right now it's always logged in. So we're going to go back to header, where we add one more link. It's just as simple as that, nothing complicated. So it would be something like this. So, but of course we're not going to have the whole drop down thing in here. We're going to skip some of that. So let's add just an li. This is not going to be a drop down, it's going to be called, it's another navigation item, so you call it nav item. And let's just start here. And the class would be nothing but nav link. Another link. And this one will use the built-in logout link, which is the logout. And of course, the text would be logout. And I think that's about it. We don't need that div. We can just save that li right there. Of course, we need to define this in our properties file. So just say logout. It should be back up started again. Let's go back to the page, refresh, and there's a logout. So as soon as you click on logout, now this is, we didn't do anything. This is basically whenever you use the built-in /logout, this is what you get, and logout, and you come back to the page again. Okay, let's see our couple of users. Like if you log in as user is the name and password. And it logs in, great, role user, everything looks good. Now the problem is, of course, any of the users can add and edit, whether it's a admin or it's a user. Of course, you can type a bad password, like I'm going to do right now, and it will say this. That's just all built in that SpringBoot is giving you, Spring Security is giving you. It's logged in as admin, admin looks good, and of course admin also can do the same thing. There is no difference. So what we're going to do right now is only admin will be able to add and edit, and the users will be only able to view this. So let's see how we're going to do that. We're going to go back to, let's start with the index first. So index is our, this is vaccine type index. This is our kind of like the vaccine type tabular list. So our goal is to basically say, hey, we're going to go ahead and let the admin add and edit only, and delete as well. So first of all, we're going to need the security tags, which is this, the sec tags. And this is pretty simple, makes it so easy to do. All we're going to do is we're going to basically say right here we have an add, so here we add a tag, basically says sec authorize. Hey, if it has an admin role, then only show this, and that's the only time it's going to show that. Same thing, we're going to say, hey, if it's got an admin role, then show the delete. So all you would have to do is just add this piece. And same thing, of course, this is just the header piece. There's the actual data. We don't want them to get the edit link on every row if it's not admin, so we just do the same thing on the delete as well. And that will take care of this. And that's basically it. Now, of course, we also wanted to go to the maintain page, since no one can just go directly type maintain and get to this page. So we also would like to secure that by just kind of putting, we can either put it here or here, doesn't matter. I'm going to just put it right here and basically say, hey, if it's an admin, only then you could do this. Of course, you can see there's a little yellow line basically. I don't know what you mean by sec authorize. So we need to kind of copy this namespace back in here. All right, now everything is good. Now let's see how it looks. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and log in as admin first, and it logs in on admin. Of course, go to vaccine types, and everything is enabled. Add edit, and just to see if we can hack it, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy this edit URL to see if I can hack this. If I log in as user, we'll see what happens. So then I'm gonna just go ahead and log out. And one thing you could check is once you're logged out, if I just try to type like the vaccine type, you won't be able to go there. It will always ask you, even the URL that I copied this, try to go there, it will kick you out. So it's pretty secured. And then let's try to log in as user now. Try a different hack. User, sign in. Now, as you can see, I'm actually said that I'm going to try to go in here, and it came to that page, but it doesn't give me the edit page. So let me just log out here and log back in again as user. All right, now I'm logged in as user, and then go to vaccine types. So voila, as you can see, I don't have any edit link, I don't have any delete link, I can't add anything. All I can see is view. Now I could of course try to hack in and type that URL for edit, and let's see what happens. It doesn't give me anything. It says no, you're not authorized to see it, so you can't really see anything. So which is good, it's secured. So I'm just gonna log out. So that's about it. That's how you add built-in security. And of course, this login page kind of looks pretty, simple. Now, if you really wanted to use our same look and feel, we need to do some more work, which we could do it the next time. I'm going to go ahead and add this project as I always do in the GitHub link, and you'll find it in the description below. Thanks for watching.